later in the program with a full weather breakdown. I'm Katerina Georgieva. Chris is away. An update tonight on the series of homicides in Sarnia. Police in the city have made arrests in 3 of the 4 deaths. The city is reeling from the loss and looking to new measures that could help prevent future crimes. CBC's Dan Takema was on the ground in Sarnia, and he joins me now live in studio with the latest. Dan, what do we know about the arrests?
Kat, police say 2 suspects have been arrested in the death of 62-year-old Alan Scherer, whose body was found on Tuesday. Police have people in custody in 3 of the crimes, but have yet to arrest anyone following the death of a 66-year-old woman who was killed on Saturday. Now, Sarnia residents I spoke with yesterday said they were feeling anxious about the violence. This morning, during Sarnia's Police Services Board meeting, Mayor Mike Bradley asked the city's police chief about the possibility of bringing back a community watch. He says it's an important tool that could help the area.
In the last few days, because of the horrific murders here, that the message was clear. Lock your doors, check your neighbors, see how they're doing. And you discover many people don't know their neighbors. So it's a good way of bringing your own mini crime force to the community, and at the same time building some sense of community in neighborhoods where people are talking to each other and watching out for each other. A lot of that does go on anyhow in neighborhoods, just by nature, but it would be good to bring back a team right across the city taking care of each other.
Now, Dan, how effective are groups like that when it comes to actually stopping crime?
Well, it depends. I spoke with a criminology professor, and she says community watches can bring both good and bad, especially if a neighborhood group decides to essentially take over policing.
You need to be careful, right? I think if they're aimed at helping to improve cohesion in communities, that's a positive. But if taken to the extreme, then that can have perhaps unintended negative consequences. Situations like this where there's an increase in crime, then there's increased vigilance, but then that tends to taper off over time.
As for Mayor Bradley, he says he believes the good of community watches would outweigh the bad. And following the 4 homicides in the past month, there's been a desire to bring them back. Today, asking the chief to provide an update on what that would look like at the next police board meeting in February. Kat?
Thanks, Dan. The CBC's Dan Takema reporting live. Windsor-Essex has been under heavy restrictions for nearly a month and a half now, and still plenty of time before these measures are lifted. All the while, for many, COVID fatigue is becoming a heavier load to carry. And today we're learning that a new order is on the way. Jacob Barker has this story.
It's quiet in downtown Windsor these days, but we're used to that. The region has been in lockdown since December 14th, longer than most of the province. And come Monday, a new restriction for those caught violating isolation measures. Anyone showing symptoms, awaiting a test result, or is a close contact with someone who has the virus found to be breaking the quarantine could face a fine of $5,000. Necessary, the health unit says, to guard against a new, more contagious variant finding its way into the region. But the many rules are wearing on the soul.
I've pretty much been home the whole time because I work at Caesars and it's not open.
Do you feel that?
Everyone does, yeah. The mental, everything. You're tired. You have like more than 8 hours and you still wake up so tired because I don't know. What can you do?
No gym, no dining out, no in-store shopping. Stay at home. It's been a long time and it's been tough.
No, I feel depressed from time to time.
The winter spike brought us thousands of new COVID cases. Day after day, we saw numbers over 150, peaking at 288 cases earlier this month. Now that curve is trending down. Earlier this week, the medical health officers said, we have a chance to get COVID-19 under control. An occupational and environmental health officer says it hasn't been easy for people to carry the burden of the restrictions.
I feel like something has really been taken from me and for many people that I know. That the loss of our social connections and the activities that made so much a part of our life and our relationships with others, this weighs heavy on many people.
Brophy says he understands the necessity for these public restrictions now, but he believes more could have been done early on to avoid this. Things like robust testing and tracing and properly protecting healthcare workers could have helped.
And decisions were made not to do them. And so the consequence is that people like you and I and our community are being asked, to sacrifice something very precious for the common good.
Even with the numbers down, officials say the lockdown needs to continue with the hope those numbers will continue to fall. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Let's take a closer look at our overall COVID cases now. The positive trend continues with 53 new cases today. The number of active cases is now down to 821. A week ago, we had nearly 3 times as many. There are 92 confirmed cases in hospital with 12 people in the ICU. And the health unit is also reporting that 1 more person has died, a man in his 70s living in the community. The health unit also provided an update on how vaccinations are going at long-term care and retirement homes. They said their second dose administration is in the process of starting up, but some are still waiting on their first doses. And that may have been because their home was an outbreak or the person was too sick at the time. So now we know that about 400 residents who want the shot have not received their first doses yet. Same goes for about 1,000 staff members in long-term care and retirement homes who want the shot but are still waiting. And just a reminder that the health unit doesn't have numbers for those who got their Pfizer shots, just Moderna. And lastly, about 700 essential caregivers are also still waiting on their shots. It's not clear at this point how many people have refused the Moderna vaccine among these 3 groups. Weeks of pandemic restrictions in Ontario appear to be having the desired impact. Cases of COVID-19 are slowly coming down, but with one of the coronavirus variants now having a foothold in Ontario. The province's top health officials are cautioning against lifting restrictions right now. Lorenda Redekop has the latest.
People are staying home more now, and daily cases have been dropping in Ontario, with the 7-day average falling for more than 2 weeks now.
We're doing better now than we were 2 weeks ago.
But a big concern, new variants, including the one already in Ontario, B117, first seen in the UK, 30% more transmissible, and they say likely more deadly.
It can really lead to a sort of almost kind of vertical type takeoff in terms of the numbers of cases, with doubling time really shrinking way down.
Dr. Adelstein Brown believes for now, international flights should be banned.
I think it's really important to control inflow into the province.
Another worry, long-term care homes. Cases are down, but deaths linked to COVID-19 are not, with 215 in the past week, almost 600 since January 1st.
We're nowhere in the clear yet. Cases are down in our long-term care homes, but the deaths will continue to mount for a long time.
And some people can't work from home. It's neighborhoods with the most essential workers where cases are highest. The modelers showed the stay-at-home order does seem to be working, comparing Ontario to other provinces.
Toronto has been in some form of lockdown since November 23rd. That was then tightened, and the current province-wide shutdown and stay-at-home order are set to expire on February 9th, but those could always be extended.
It started feeling like depressing mentally. There are a lot of chances that the cases might increase.
Regardless, now I think we are in it. Let's get the LTC, the vulnerable, the people working frontline vaccinated, and then we can start thinking about opening up. But I also don't own a small business.
And do it very
And a word of caution from the chief medical officer.
They've seen the countries where they have come down and they said, aha, we're off to the races. And before you know it, and it goes right up exponentially. And we don't want to see that happen.
If the province does decide to extend the emergency order, it'll have to recall the legislature first to vote on it. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
A new report shows the number of vacant rental apartments increased slightly in 2020, and it's being attributed to a pullback in demand driven by the pandemic.
I really think this is going to be a temporary shift, okay? I don't think it's going to be a long-term shift. A lot of people are thinking that we're going to have this all of a sudden crash. But right now, when COVID is going to, vaccines are coming out, things are going to go back to normal. And I think that it's going to stabilize.
She's referring to findings from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The data in the survey released today is based on properties with multiple rental units inside, like apartments. According to the survey, the pandemic resulted in many being laid off from work and fewer international students coming into Windsor. all factors in the vacancy rate going up a bit. But there was also a big spike. The report says the average rental rate locally increased by nearly 9% in 2020. That's well above the provincial guideline of just 2.2%.
If you have a look at other, metropolitan cities across the province, I think that's also another way to benchmark this. So if we have a look at Windsor at approximately $940 average rent, and then you go up, basically Hamilton, $1,200 give or take, and then beyond that, Kitchener-Waterloo, it starts to escalate. So it's painful for renters to see an increase, absolutely.
The report also says fewer renters made the transition from renting to owning when comparing 2019 to 2020. That's because of high economic uncertainty amid the pandemic. A local writer has sparked a rule change in one of Canada's major literary awards, the Brownwin-Wallace Award for Emerging Writers. It's given annually to Canadian writers who haven't yet published a book. Up until now, entrants had to be 35 years of age or less. But a Windsor writer challenged the definition of emerging and won.
There's often this assumption that emerging artists are going to be young, that everyone starts writing when they're, 18 years old, and then their careers slowly take off, whatever that means for them. But in fact, writing is one of these kind of beautiful arts because you can come to it at any point in your life. It's not like sports where you kind of have to be young and fit and whatever. And so writing, really, when we look at the demographics of writers, they really cross the age spectrum. And some start writing late in life, some of, just continue writing late in life, whatever it is. It's really something that engages older people as well as younger people. And so it just seemed unreasonable to not include older emerging writers in this. And not to mention the fact that there's an obvious ageism there. There's no real reason to discriminate against older writers. And so it just seemed pretty arbitrary to have this age cap on it. And I mean, some people are raising families, some, have been immigrants to Canada, some may have medical conditions they're dealing with. They might be caregivers. This whole range of reasons why people emerge later.
And so when you found out that the rules did indeed change as a result of your efforts and the efforts of fellow writers, what did that mean to you? What went through your mind?
I guess, it was mostly shock and surprise, really, that things just changed so quickly. And people keep saying you did so much work. And it's like, well, kind of, but it wasn't as much work as people have put into other similar types of campaigns. And I think that was mainly for circumstantial reasons. We got lucky in many ways. But yeah, it's great. It's heartening to see that change can happen in a positive direction, I guess.
And forgive me, how old are you?
I'm 31.
31. Okay. So it wasn't necessarily even to, benefit yourself. It was to make sure that others weren't excluded.
Yeah, no, I'm eligible. Actually, I entered the Brownwin-Wallace Award this year. So it wasn't affecting me, and it hopefully would never affect me. I'd love to have a book before I'm 35. But it was one of those things. We do all, nevertheless, have to be in some ways aware of ageism and how our society treats people of various ages, because it's something we will all confront one day. If it's not this, it's something else. And I think if we don't establish a precedent of valuing older members of our society, then that's a problem.
Lasalle is looking to spruce up its waterfront. Windsor and Amherstburg are well developed along the river. Lasalle, less so, but that is about to change. The town is looking to its residents for input on what they want their spot along the river to look like, and the mayor already has some plans.
Well, the first things we're looking at is retrofitting the Westport Marina into a multi-purpose facility. So we'll be redoing the tennis courts just behind me. There'll be 4 courts starting in June of this year, and we want to put in a water feature, like a splash pad for the summer, but in wintertime, we'll freeze that and people will skate on it. We're going to have a pumping station. We've received a grant for flooding along Front Road, so we're going to put a pumping station, but while we do that, we're going to add on maybe some washrooms in a little community center so people can use that in the wintertime when they're skating, or in the summertime in the splash pads. We bought the Benoit House, which is the first Mayor Lasalle's home, so we'd like to turn that into a museum/welcome center. It'll be, like I said, it's a fluid situation, and as it develops and say, look, let's do this big project now because we got a grant, or do we wait then maybe a grant will come up next year and apply then if it comes and we have that big ticket item. So it's all a fluid situation.
A live look at our city there. We had cloudy skies for much of today, and tomorrow we'll get a bit of sun, but that increase in cloudiness throughout the day again. Colette will be with us right after the break with weather, but first, this year for Valentine's Day, it's unlikely you'll be going out to dinner, but here's an option for you, a celebratory spin on a classic Canadian dish. Kraft Dinner has gone pink. The company posted this on their social media, Candy KD. They say this macaroni and cheese is sweet and completely pink. Are you willing to give it a try? I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to. Stay with us. Welcome back. Finland has introduced a green initiative during their cold, snowy winter. The streets of Lahti are now filled with ski trails, and the city has rolled out what it calls the world's first public ski sharing program. It works like a bike sharing program with people picking up skis at certain locations and returning them when they're done. The city was awarded the designation of European Green Capital of 2021, and it wants to encourage people to reduce their transport-related carbon emissions. The city's goal is to be carbon neutral by 2025. Now let's bring in Colette Kennedy. She's joining us for weather, but Colette, would you try that?
I would try that, and I love it. I mean,
yeah,
and
such a cool idea.
And just that you can also borrow the skis. Like when I first saw it, I was thinking, oh, they're doing like in the winter, they're doing the ski lanes like we have bike lanes, but they're taking it. That was my thought too. They're taking it that step further, right? You can even pick up the skis and rent them. I think it's awesome. Sure, I'm game. Let's see what we can do. We need a little more snow, southwestern Ontario. Right now, the temperature that we've got the cold air, don't we? -6 at Chatham-Kent as well. These are your wind chills, and tonight's actually going to be a little colder than last night. We were around -8 for our low, close to -9, and -6 for the daytime high. Again, it was -5 point something, but close to that, right? So we've got that cold air in place, and it even gets just a little bit chillier tonight. But taking a look at what's going on, nothing here, nothing to see here. You can be doing that skiing, though, cross country or otherwise, where the snow belts, where there's significant amounts, 15, 20 centimeters in 12 hours, and those lake effect machines still driving, and then really beginning to ease later in the day tomorrow, and then by Saturday morning should be all but gone. We'll be seeing some sunshine, a little increase in cloudiness later in the day tomorrow, but into Saturday, high pressure takes over and we have sun back. But I want to show you this system passing to the south of us. It's actually going to bring the temperatures up a little bit. But the other thing is that into Sunday, if this tracks a little further north, we're going to get more than just a glancing blow. But for now, it looks like a little bit of light snow and some flurry activity as we go into Sunday. And then it moves away towards the east and just leaving behind some flurries into Monday. Tonight, this is what I mean. We're going down. -11, feeling like almost -20. Tomorrow, a little bit better, though, with the daytime high. It's the overnight low, which really comes in the morning hours. That's so cold. We're actually coming up a little bit, so -2 will be good to have that sunshine. Again, just a little further east towards London, St. Thomas, that region. Totally different story and weather pattern there. -2 as well for Saturday. Some milder overnights as that system comes by. It's actually kind of doing us a favor. If you would like it to be a little bit milder, it helps it to get outside when you're not having to worry about the cold being dangerous. In towards Tuesday, we may even see a daytime high of 0. We might even come up to 0.
That sounds lovely.
Yes.
No ski lanes just yet, though.
No, we just don't quite have that yet. Just a little bit further east, though. Just kind of head over there. Yeah.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we'll tell you about a man's enormous hat collection, and we'll tell you what he's doing with it now. Stay with us. As of this morning, there are no Air Transat flights out of Toronto. This is impacting popular destinations like Cancun, Punta Cana, Cuba, and Portugal. The suspension is expected to last until the end of April. The airline will continue to offer flights out of Montreal to 6 international destinations. Air Transat says travel restrictions have had a big impact on bookings. That includes proof of a negative COVID-19 test taken no longer than 72 hours before boarding a flight to Canada and a 2-week quarantine upon arrival. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says new measures for travel will be announced in the coming days and that Canadians should cancel any travel plans. Air Transat says passengers who've already paid for flights can get a full refund. Those currently abroad will be rebooked on returning flights to Canada. People may not be going out and about as much these days, but it turns out they still want something they can put on their heads. And a Nova Scotia entrepreneur is happy to help. Matthew Moore has this story.
Vintage caps. Justin Ian Lee has been collecting and selling these hats since the pandemic started. He started his own company, Milk Caps. And you really have to tip your hat to his ability to collect. His personal collection includes vintage milk caps from the 1940s and 50s. He even has an actual milk cap, once worn by a milkman.
I had one from every province, and people went berserk for them.
At one point, he had over 2,500. Now, his stock is down to around 300 or 400.
Look at that. This one is awesome. I vacuum that. Dad was in the Coast Guard.
They're a hot ticket item on Instagram.
This is C&G Electrical. Or it sort of looks like a motorbike, if you put it on this side.
He has acquired them in rather unique ways.
I get a call from this guy, and he goes, "My dad's got hats." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "My dad's got hats." And I was like, "All right, well, you're talking my language now, baby. Like, what's up?"
He picked up 700 hats from this man's collection. He's done his fair share of milk runs, meeting people in parking lots of grocery stores, even gone to estate sales to see if anyone had a hat collection sitting in the attic. One of the main reasons why this business works, according to Lee, is because of 2 human elements: nostalgia and exclusivity. Many of these hats can't be found anywhere else. In particular, local hats from auto body shops, old breweries, and random locations around the province are hot sellers. He's learned that every hat has a story. Some even have personal connections.
And be like, "Oh my God, dude, that was my grandfather's hat." And they'll send me a picture. This is a real story. They send me a picture of their grandfather wearing that hat from like the mid-70s.
Lee says he has another large shipment of lids coming in, upwards of 700 to 800. And he hopes to continue learning more about the people under the hats as well.
It's got like Glace Bay in there.
Matthew Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
It is interesting to see the cool things that people get up to during the pandemic. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can find us on social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Have a great night.